Dr. Jenny Kokai. I'm the director of the School of Theater and Dance, and I am very, very, very excited to have with us today 4 members from the cast of A Strange Loop. They are much beyond that. They are incredibly talented and accomplished performers who have done a whole lot of different things that I'm going to tell you about once they get out here. But A Strange Loop was a triumph of a production. It was produced by some very good friends and an alum of our institution, and they graciously helped bring them here today. It won the Tony for Best Musical. It won an Obie for Best Musical with the cast as well, and it also won the Pulitzer for the writing of it. So it's hard to understate how triumphant and amazing this piece of theater was. It also highlighted voices that are not necessarily always highlighted on Broadway, and performers who are not always celebrated on Broadway. And so I think it was probably one of the most influential pieces of theater culture in the last 20 years. So it's just a huge honor for them to be here today. So I'm going to invite them to join us, and then I will introduce them. So if you all would. Hello. All right, so I'm going to do some quick introductions, and I'm going to go from the furthest away to the closest. So Jason Veasey is a New York-based actor, singer, strong mover, and sometimes writer. These were the bios I was given. He was last seen on Broadway in the Pulitzer Prize-winning A Strange Loop, and then all the other things I said at one. He was seen in Woolly Mammoth and Playwrights Horizons productions as well, for which he won an Obie Award. He has been in the Broadway and national touring companies of The Lion King and on many stages across the country, from the Denver Center to Actors Theater of Louisville and the Muni. Over the past few years, he's been doing a lot of TV and film, and I'll just go to the one you can look for, which he is going to be in season 3 and was in season 2 of Only Murders in the Building, so you can check him out there. L. Morgan Lee, I'm just going to skip the bits where you were in A Strange Loop because I feel like I covered that.
We were all there.
Yes. She made history as the first openly transgender actor to be nominated for a Tony Award. The debut garnered her, yes. It also garnered her an Antonio Award for featured performance in a musical and a Drama League Distinguished Performance nomination. Other notable work involves playing the titular role in the musical adaptation of The Danish Girl being developed in London, and 20 years off-Broadway, regional and international and national tours. Many cool things. Yes.
20 years off in my day.
James Jackson Jr. is currently appearing in Michael R. Jackson, who is the playwright, or the librettist for A Strange Loop. The new piece, White Girl in Danger, which is a great title, at Second Stage Theater in New York. An actor, musician, and cabaret artist, originally from Massachusetts. An Obie Award winner, a featured singer with Radio City Christmas Spectacular, lots of cabaret work, many, many cool credits. Sorry. Long bios. Wait, I have to include my most favorite thing here, though. Along with national tours of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Whistle Down the Wind and regional credits of Dreamgirls and The Wild Party, James has proudly been blocked on all social media platforms by Taylor Dane, the musician. Yes. So.
Might still be here. Don't
Okay. That wasn't a question I was planning to ask, but maybe we'll talk about who the most famous and ridiculous person you're blocked on social media from is. And then John Andrew Morrison is an award-winning actor living and working in New York City. John Andrew received a Tony nomination, a Lucille Lortel Award, and an Obie Award for his work in the Pulitzer Prize-winning musical A Strange Loop. What? He was also an Outer Critics. Congratulations! He was also an Outer Critics Circle honoree for his performance in the off-Broadway premiere of Blues for an Alabama Sky. John Andrew got to collaborate and bring Boy Steele's Train to the Edinburgh Festival, where the show won the Fringe First Award and also the London Stage Award. And then many amazing credits. Classical Theater of Harlem, including the Obie Award-winning The Blacks, A Clown Show, and Caligula with Andre de Shields. John Andrews' work has been seen internationally and regionally at theaters including the Hartford Stage, Baltimore Center Stage, Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, and ART. And then John Andrew and someone else who didn't put this in their bio are a co-host and co-creator of the web talk show, 5 Questions with James and Jam.
Wow.
It's in there now.
Also, you're late.
Okay. They have interviewed incredible artists, including Ryan Reynolds, Gavin Creel, B.D. Wong, and many more. And if you come back at 3:30, they will be recording their podcast from here with more incredible artists that are USF focused. So I encourage you to do that. All right, so I'm going to ask some questions, but I also want to leave time for questions from the audience. So we'll see where we get to. But since we're at a university, I thought I might start by asking you about your own educational backgrounds. I know that, James, you have a BA in music education, which might surprise some people. Music education to Broadway is not the pipeline we always think of.
It can be.
Yeah, that's what, obviously. So I wondered if you wanted to talk about your educational backgrounds, what degrees you have, what you got out of them, and if there's anything that you would change about your educational journey.
I can jump in.
Yeah.
I have a BFA from University of the Arts in Philadelphia in musical theater. You know what University of the Arts is. Interesting. It was a pretty straightforward conservatory program that did not focus on. So musical theater programs tend to have we know the structure of cookie cutters that we sort of want to make you into. University of the Arts did not do that, and so that was one of the pros to me, is that they allowed you to develop your own sort of individual artistry, which can create a harder time sort of after school, getting into the work world, because if you're not sort of factory made into the perfect chorus girl or chorus boy, then things can be really difficult. However, it does help you shape work. It does help you develop work in a very different way. If there's anything that I could have changed about my education, it would have been taking more advantage of it. It would have been to stop skipping ballet class. It would have been to actually be as open as someone who is between 18 and 21 can be to listening to the words that my teachers had for me. Because you're freshly living alone, freshly in the world, and just trying to live and not really focusing on school as much as you could be, probably. So I would have taken more advantage.
I got a BFA musical theater from the University of Northern Colorado. And I have been thinking a lot about this because over the past few years, I've had a lot of interaction with my alma mater. I was just on my campus 2 days ago. So I think what I would change for my experience, because I truly feel like I had the best program for me at the time, I would have definitely changed me not being the only black male in the program for 4 years. I would have loved to have had another barometer of how, besides community, but another barometer or someone else to deal with that. But I think, I don't know if it's something that you can change, but I think it is such a weird and hard thing when we talk about how hard it can be to go to school for theater and the things that come along with that. You are a student of theater where you're being asked, where you're getting the training to best inhabit another person, another character, whilst also for the first time figuring out who you are as a human being.
It's hard.
And that's 2 really hard tasks to be doing at the same time. You know, if I could switch it into magical language, it'd be like, you can't go to school for theater until you're at least 21. You know, because it's really, really hard. So a lot of the things that I would change or that affected me negatively because of going to school were only because it was also when I was happening at the same time trying to figure out how to be the human being I wanted to, let alone how to inhabit other human beings with a wealth of life experience on the page.
Yeah, and I think that's true for artists in general.
Yes.
Like if you're learning a repertoire of material or if people setting dance upon you.
Right.
If you don't know who you are yet and you're figuring that out, how do you do both? Yeah, it's
Right.
very hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. So that's my answer.
Which is why it's important that educators are helping you to understand that you won't get everything you can at that point in your life. That it is important to take the words that you're being told, but at the same time, know that you can only take in so much information at this point. Life ends up, in particular for actors, I think, life ends up being one of the best teachers.
I went to Westfield State University in the Berkshires in Massachusetts and have a bachelor's degree in music education because I wanted to be the high school music teacher. Because my high school music teacher had a really profound impact on me. All of my music teachers did. I had a piano teacher from the time I was 5 years old, had a different teacher when I was probably like 14 or 15, but all of my music teachers had such a really strong impact on me. I just wanted to be like them. And I thought what like an amazing gift they gave me, so I hope I could give that back to someone because I couldn't dare perform. I thought that was like just terrifying to me. So I was a music ed major. I was a piano minor. I was studying opera and classical music and how to teach those things. And performing was a total accident that happened after the fact. By the time I got to about time to student teach, I had a lot of friends who had graduated and were out in the world as teachers, and they were miserable. And I didn't know why. I didn't get it yet, because I was 21 years old. And I started getting performing work, and it just sort of snowballed into lots and lots more performing work. And now I think all the time about how much I learned in school, and I think the tools that I learned studying in this liberal arts environment, studying education, helped me kind of be better at rehearsal, be better at like sight reading, or all of the tools that I needed. I can go do them really well now. I don't know, I think I just picked up on, I looked at things way differently because I never thought performing would ever be my job, because I didn't think I would ever get hired to do that. I still don't. I have to work on that. But yeah, I look at everything as education first, and I think the thing I would change isn't necessarily about the program, it's about me, and I would probably go back to school and take the knowledge I have now and actually impart that. No one is teaching the life skills stuff. That is not a part of the curriculum and studying education or just studying performance. The life skills of being an artist out in the world trying to make something out of thin air and make that into a living, those are not taught. I don't think they really could be. They could probably be taught, but I don't know how you would grade someone. But I would love to be the person to figure that out. So I would love to go back to school now. I think about it all the time, to talk to people about how to study this thing, yes, but how to go out in the world and make the absolute most of it, and enjoy yourself and do it for yourself. I would love to talk to folks about how to do that.
Build on
We'll
that
talk.
in a little bit. But I was a rambunctious, mischievous gay kid in Kingston, Jamaica, so I couldn't wait to get to Brandeis University, where they literally were like, great, dance, sing, do cartwheels, and I loved it. And Brandeis really just kind of was the biggest encouragement. They cast me in everything, so I literally was in every show, even things I shouldn't have been in. I was a Jewish immigrant in rags. Why? But they literally like, put him in the show. And so I was greatly encouraged there. And then what I realized was I learned how to perform, and I had a natural sense for performing, but what I wanted to learn was how to act. And I went to UCSD and got an MFA in acting, and that was the first time that I had this very practical toolbox given to me of how to break down scenes, how to do all of the work that actually has come with me throughout my entire career. It was the first time I had an acting teacher who was an actor, and that was also very helpful. But it was a very rigorous program. We started at 8 in the morning and we ended at like midnight every day. And so my entire day and night was this craft, was studying this craft, was reading about it, was doing it. So I loved it. I loved it. And I will say, I mean, the good thing about learning technique and learning concepts is that it will take a lifetime. You know, all of these things, really, technique should be simple, but it should take a lifetime to master. And it should take a lifetime for you to deepen, and you're gonna meet things along the way of your life, and you're gonna be like, oh, and it will deepen and deepen. And to your point, for me, because I went to a program that was theater-based, what I do wish is that programs, I think theater is the best way to teach acting, but I think one of the things that we need to focus on is not making people theater actors, but actors. Because to support a theater career, you had better be on TV. You had better be in movies. Because one of the sad realities is, you know, you hear about certain storied institutions like the Public Theater or Playwrights Horizons, and then you go to work there. And you get that paycheck, and you realize, I cannot pay my rent.
It's traumatic.
And what you realize is that the people who do work in these places on a regular basis are also supporting that by having TV careers and having movie careers. And so, and teaching, but I wish that there was a totality in the fact that we need to be actors in every medium. We need to be doing voice work. We need to be working on television. We need to be we need to do all of that and build all of your social media platforms right now. I mean, I know that you're all gonna be like, oh, but that's not art. But when it comes down, but it is. When it comes down to you and someone else being cast,
There's an art to using it.
Yeah.
There's an art to using
there's
it.
an art to
They're
using
young,
it.
they're all on
They're on
social
the
media.
best
Yeah.
They were the ones teaching us.
All right. Show me how to TikTok.
Well, we do have people who can do that, but I think that's, I mean, I'm a playwright, and that's also true for playwrights. Like the ones who are, you can't make a living as a playwright. People are doing TV, they're doing film,
you have
and
to.
playwriting is the thing they love. But it's sort of true, and that's true in dance and music as well.
Yeah.
I think we get separated around this time in college, where you like, the best dancers are put over here, the best musicians are put over here, and then you sort of stay in that lane. And you have got to cross lanes. You have to be a bad driver. You really have to get invested in like, well, what's she doing over there? Like you really have to learn what your neighbor is doing.
Well, also, and that's the thing, what you all are learning and what actors are actually brilliant at are being professional learners, because you're always learning lines, you're always learning choreography, you're learning fight choreography. And so learn to code, learn how to edit, learn how to build websites, learn how to do all of these things, because just always be a continual and a professional learner. And because there are going to be times when you're on the road doing a tour for $200, and you best want to be able to build a website for somebody for $2,000.
That's true.
So you had a kind of a unique journey. I mean, maybe not that unique, you can tell me, but you were with A Strange Loop from very early on, all the way through the Broadway production of it. And so I wondered if you wanted to talk about that journey and some of the things that you're talking about that you learned along the way, or that you brought to it from what you learned, and what that experience was moving with a piece in such a fashion?
So, I mean, I will say that, so in 2008, it's now documented, that was the first time I sang periodically, which is a song that I sang in the show. But at the time, there wasn't a show called A Strange Loop, right? And during that time, I had been a event planner for an oil and energy firm for about 7 years. I did business development for another corporate entity. I taught presentation skills for another thing. I did all kinds of things. And at the same time that I was doing all of that, I would, I'd be in a suit until 5 o'clock, and then I'd go downtown to La Mama and be naked screaming at the gods from 6 to midnight. And that was my life for a long time. But I almost left the business. I left the business many times because be prepared for heartbreak with this profession, but also your heart will heal and do beautiful things. So the iteration of the show that is really important is when we all started to do it at Musical Theater Factory. So by that time, there had been now this thing called A Strange Loop. It had come up and gone. There was a very traditional casting of it. There was a white woman and a white man and a black woman was in it. But for whatever reason, every single time that they did it, they asked me to play the mom. And when the director, Stephen Brackett, came on board, he kept asking, why do you have John Andrew play that part? And he was the one who came up with the idea, what if it was all black queer people on stage? It was black queer bodies. And that version of the show was the one that we developed at Musical Theater Factory. We're all involved with that. And we did that for years.
Yeah.
Years.
Like a long time.
A long time.
It doesn't feel like it was as long as it was, but
It was long.
It was a long time.
It was long.
I feel like it felt like a long time.
Well, as soon as you started to miss the experience of
Right.
another reading pop up.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
was-
You would go away and do
there were
something
lots
to
of
make
them.
your money.
Yeah. So we were always being invited back to come and do a reading, or do a concert, or we're gonna sing some songs at Joe's Pub, or we're gonna sing some things at Lincoln Center.
Or just read scenes.
Yeah.
Book-only stuff.
Yeah. And so it was a weird developmental process, and I think the big turning point was when we were offered. You all are a part of this. I haven't been the only one speaking. 54 Below offered us a night to present what we had, and it was sold out. And that was the night. Why? What
I think I'm
happened?
just thinking, because that performance there is a central character, Usher, in the show. That particular performance had a lineup of people as Usher, so just all these just very random people just
Please,
popping
Usher.
into
Each
that.
got a song.
But we stood on stage the entire night
And played
the thoughts. Yeah.
our thought characters,
And watched
with
all the
rotating
different-
ushers.
And
Yeah,
watched
yeah.
all the different impressions.
But I
Yeah.
think
Usher
that
could
was the
be.
first time that, for me, and I think for a lot of people watching, I keep, in the lore of the show, I keep hearing of people that were at that night, of oh, I saw that concert. And I'm like, you were there? I didn't even know you
That's
there.
where Mike Walkup was at. From
Right,
Veasey.
and I'm like, I didn't even know he was there yet. But
Yeah.
that's when it first seemed like, oh, this is a thing. This
Yeah.
could be genre changing
Can
if
I
it actually
say
could
one
ever get on
small
stage.
thing that that was a pivotal moment for that concert for me was it was the first time that I remember realizing truthfully that Usher is the central character of the show, but if you don't have the thoughts, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were up there the whole time.
We were there the
so
whole-
we
the
were
whole
looking
time.
back. I don't think I realized that we were such a focal point.
Yeah.
Even though that's true, but I think that's when people were kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
that thing.
And there was another moment where Musical Theater Factory did this thing called the 4x15, and they would present 15 minutes
Four different shows.
of 4 different
They
shows,
present
15 minutes.
15 minutes of each
And
show.
for whatever reason, Michael decided, I want to present AIDS is God's punishment. And like, there we were.
It's the first time we did the thing.
We did the
without-
thing.
Yes.
Without music
We
stands.
staged it, and like, we literally saw people in the audience go, we
Which
were
has
like-
been the reaction. We saw that same look on Broadway too. Like that's just been
Yeah, and
the
so it was, but it
response.
was like, that was, for me, the time when I was like, something,
There's a there there.
something's happening. Like, people are like going, what is this?
It was always this thing that our friend was writing that we worked on. I always felt like I worked on songs in Michael's bedroom one time when I first met him. We've done it. I tell people we've done it for free. We've done it for a box of chicken. We've done it for a Metro card to get home. That then when I got to the subway, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And we did it on Broadway. So
Yeah.
like, there's no iteration of this show that we haven't done.
Yeah.
And I think it's, for me, I know it was because there was something always that spoke to some part of me, but I also never thought that it would happen on a stage for real, and someone would like buy a ticket to see it.
Yeah.
But because my friend is doing it, I want to help my friend. And then I met these other people who I was like, oh, well, shit, I like them too. So I want to be around them, and I want to learn from them and like see what it's like to just play with them. Because we would do readings sometimes or workshops where we didn't even sing. We would just sit around and
Just
talk.
the book. Just the book.
Let's
Talk.
talk about like your coming out experience. What was your worst date? What was just talk about your life, and that was art.
Yeah.
So it was like that was very healing. So it was a really lovely space to always come back to.
It also
And-
bonded us.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, in such a great way. So when we got to having to negotiate later down the road when there were contracts, now you're messing with family.
Oh my
Like-
God. But I think also what bonded us the very first time we did it, so Musical Theater Factory, when it started, was in a gay porn studio above the drama bookshop. And we had a free space. And it
They
had
weren't using it during the day.
It had no heat. And so we walked up 4 flights of stairs in this industrial building
Into a gay porn studio.
to sing this music, and we were like bundled up.
There's photos of us in hats and scarves, like shivering and
Shivering,
singing this music.
shivering. I mean,
Why?
yeah.
And while we're doing that, the artistic director of that company is like crossing behind us with a bath towel because she was living in the space.
In this base.
Yeah.
It was
It was the most
wild.
fascinating,
It was
wild time.
It's
wild.
also a thing when you look at like a lot of times when people originate roles, right? Things are built on them. Like let's say like Hello Dolly, right? That was built for the skill sets for Carol Channing, but Dolly Levi existed already, right? And the thoughts did. But the thing is, it's hard for me to say that things were built on us as opposed to us being the template for the thoughts specifically. You know, like not that there was like, here's this thing, and we'll tailor it to you as opposed to we're tailoring this thing, taking from the cloth of you.
Yeah.
And that was I think an experience. I would say for a lot of us the first time that really happened, where you can say, you know, where someone can say, what is thought 5? It is undeniable that there are elements. If you know Jason Veasey, then that's it.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are things as we went on for years and years and years where they just started to naturally fall into the right
Yes,
person.
yes.
Like, oh, Jam would not say that. That can't be for Jam.
Yeah.
So like, they just naturally fell into whose mouth they belonged in.
And literally, he started to write music for all of our voices. So literally in the show, I sing the lowest note in my voice, and I sing the highest note in my voice.
Now I'm gonna say something is I don't like that because he's shady about that because he knows our voices.
He
so
knows
he's
them
gonna,
better than we do.
So he'll be like, oh, you can do this, knowing he can't do it 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
He's so
Right.
grimy.
Yeah.
He'd hear you playing, like I might post something on social media, like goofing off, playing when something gets go, oh, you got a G sharp up there.
Yeah.
Score.
Let's put it in the thing.
All
You're
of a
like,
sudden, it's like written in, and you're like, oh
Not
my
in your
God,
show, I
8 shows a week.
But that's as much as like we were listening to each other and learning our own rhythms of how to play with each other.
Yeah.
All of that was being witnessed by him
Yeah.
in the corner.
Yeah.
And I'm getting this new insight into his crazy brain because I'm either smartly or stupidly working for Michael again. So I haven't figured out which one's winning yet. But it's the same process where he knows my voice. I'm also playing the writer of this piece, so I'm playing Michael. Like, come on. But I'm getting a little more insight, and yes, he is crazy. Yeah. As it turns out, we were right all along.
He's quiet about it.
He's very quiet about it.
He's
And he channels it all into the notes or the music or the whatever, but he knows our voices in such a way that I don't know, there's notes in me that I doubt and have always doubted. There's like, I just for some reason can't hit whatever. But he's written multiple whatevers. And I see them and I have to go talk to my therapist. And then we work through it, and then I sing them. But he, all along, just knew, oh, you could do that. And I just find that so fascinating that he knows that for all of us in such a great way.
Was this also true? We have a lot of dance folks here, and I know there's a strong mover in here, but not a dancer. So was this also true for the movement and the choreography? How did that come in, and how did that change?
You know, Jason has been our dance captain before. So.
Now, this is where Leo comes in. I'm a dancer. I just say strong mover so they don't put me in these dance calls.
Right. Yes.
Dancer.
No.
Strong mover. First time we had a dance workshop. It was the first time Raja came in. And it was pivotal because up until that point, nothing had ever been physicalized. It was always behind music stands.
Yeah.
And aside from staging, no one had ever thought about what is it like to actually be a
Have
thought.
a choreographer.
And how does a thought move? What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah.
So Raja came in on the first day to this band of people.
Not me.
And
I was not there.
you weren't there. And was kind of like, all right, we're going to do. So we had to start off doing like
Doubles.
double pirouette workshops.
We're like,
Cross the floor.
Cross the floors. And I was kind of just like, we ain't doing this.
This doesn't fit the show.
But it was helpful for us to kind of bond in a different way.
Right.
Is where we had to like be our mothers, which is where like the thing about with us.
Oh,
we
right.
had to be
Yes,
our
yes,
moms.
yes.
And
Just
bring-
this thought of taking away the music stands was terrifying.
I remember you
We all
saying
did
that.
Inwood Daddy.
we all did it with
Someone
Daddy.
said like, oh, we're going to do a dance workshop, and I was like, for what?
No, but I remember
Did
you
Michael
saying-
write a new show?
I remember you saying, oh, it's a movement workshop. And you're like, how are they going to make us move with
With
the
music
with the
stands.
music stand?
I was like, I can't dance with a music stand. Because it was not in my brain that
There
this
was
would
in the,
ever.
in the older version of Intermission Song, when they had just Elle Morgan's up there screaming, they had her shenanigans from stage left to stage right, just screaming back and forth, wild, exploring.
Oh,
figuring
and there's
things out.
video. John
There
Moore has
is a
video.
video. There is a
Yeah,
video.
there is video. But you saying, how are they going to move us with the music stands? Are they putting us on platforms that they're moving?
It did not
around?
register
Like,
to
just
me.
were like, yeah.
It made no sense.
It's a really wild thing to look back on the journey and just see us like figuring things out. But even like when we started staging, I was just so comfortable and doing it in the form of a reading was so in my body, even down to like, I knew exactly what numbers I could just turn the page without even looking. And then
I was
I'm like,
scared to
I'm in
look
my-
at people when we took the stands away. Because, you know, you're at music stands for 12 years, looking, just reading off the music
In
stand.
order
looking.
of voicing.
And then you take them away, and you're like, no, you're having a conversation with someone, and you're like, ah! Like I have to talk to you on stage?
Yeah.
It was terrifying.
Or the person singing my part is over there. I'm kind of like, no, they need to be right here.
Yeah, they
Right.
need to be, because for years we lined up one,
In
two,
order.
three, four, five,
6.
six. And so like I would always hear people on either side of me, and then all of a sudden like you're over
I'm
there
here, like,
high kicking, and I'm like, what is that? So? But one of the things that was wonderful about the staging process was like seeing how brave everybody got, and kind of like stepping into this thing, and they're like, I'm really uncomfortable with this movement thing, but all right, and like people kind of just stepped into it.
It's when you
into
saw
it,
everyone's
into
like
it.
training and technique and
Yeah.
things. It's kind of like going off of what you were saying about like technique and craft. It's like, you know, it's plastic surgery. Once it settles in, you know,
Your surgery
I don't know what
looks
you're talking about.
tremendous,
that's good, right?
Larry.
But I think because we were always in music, we saw each other's musicianship and things like that. But the way that we see each other making choices, the way that we are brave in different ways,
It's
that's
really
when we also
cool.
started learning more about each
Yeah,
other.
and
And like,
how how each of us used our bodies. You know, how different characters lived in our bodies, and people owning it. It
Are
was
these
really,
things that you also learn, like if you're doing like, let's go do Oklahoma somewhere, and you rehearse for 2 weeks, and like you kind of pick up on like, okay, I guess I kind of like her, I don't really like him.
so.
Again,
depending on
we
who's
just had
leading the room.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had these years.
I was gonna say, in some ways, it's sort of like the college thing that's great, is that you have 4 years or so where you're
Yeah,
in a
that's true.
space with people
Yeah.
and you really
It's
get to
really-
know them and what they're good at and not good at.
It's rare that in your life you will have, like we will never go through an experience that for 13, 14 years?
Yeah.
Like you'll never be able to do another thing that you will go from someone's bedroom to Broadway. Like now, it will probably be a lot quicker. So we won't be in these spaces where you have to take years to work on your thing, work on it with people you're comfortable with. So make the most of that. It's like that's why I think about going back to school, because like it was that's 4 years of really great stuff, some shitty things too, but some really great stuff. And then this was over a decade of some really good times where I learned so much about myself and how I am in a room and what I'm like to work with and how to ask questions for what I need or what my castmates need, or like how to advocate for not just myself but us in the sake of this piece. And I only learned that because of the time that we had and getting comfortable with each other. And you don't get to do that a lot in life.
Yeah.
Everything is like 2 weeks of rehearsal and then go do it with strangers.
Yeah, because we invested so much of ourselves and spirits into the work itself.
Yeah, and I think it's
We took
helpful.
a sense of
now.
ownership
Yes,
on that work
yes,
as a
so
result.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it will fuel how we go through the rest of life. Like
Absolutely.
I want to go into spaces and behave like what I've learned.
Absolutely.
Based on what we went through.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to have that chance. It's not going to be another decades-long process with something.
I always say, if you find artists that you really gel with, that you make reasons to work with them again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
So
is
that you
true.
can
It
have
makes total
that.
sense.
I did want to offer a chance for people to ask questions, because it's two
We're
things.
just up here having our own conversation.
That's the problem. with having
We're
this
some
panel.
talking people.
We will-
I'm
yeah.
so
No,
sorry.
that's great. Yeah.
And then, yeah.
So if there are questions from the audience, I did want to have an opportunity for that. Okay, I see a lot. So there's
Yeah,
a
that's
person out
good.
here with a microphone, so
Microphone
you
is
can choose.
coming.
Hello, my name is Linda, and I teach voice at St. Petersburg College, which is a feeder school it's a 2-year program. And I
Singing
encountered
voice or speech?
voice,
Okay.
singing. And I encountered my first transgendered student. He was a she, and now when he came to me in his 50s, his voice is kind of all over the place. So this might be a question for you, Ms. Lee. When he wasn't taking his meds like a regular thing, I think that you must do, you have to educate me. His voice range was everywhere. So as a teacher, I think I need to go back to school to learn how to teach a trans voice. So when this happened to you, did you have any issues with range, or is there anything advice you could give me or knowledge you could give me to be a better teacher for this person?
Oh, that's wonderful. It's interesting because the conversation around trans voices is very active right now. And in some ways, I sort of admittedly come from a sort of a space of privilege in that like my voice didn't change at all. I always sung the way I sing. And for me, transition just started to make my singing voice make more sense in a lot of rooms. People looked at me like I was crazy for much of my career. And then suddenly they all understood. Now everything fits. But in terms of, and there's also a thing, if someone is on some form of HRT, which is not a requirement for trans folks, but if someone has chosen to take that step in their transition, if they are someone who is transmasculine, there is a larger effect on the voice. Testosterone is a lot more aggressive to what happens to the voice. On the more feminine side of the spectrum, estrogen does not really affect the voice. So you have a lot of trans feminine people who are trying to teach themselves to sound a way that is more affirming to them. I personally come from the school of, I would encourage educators to help their student just be the best singer they can be, and to not sort of try to pressure them with societal expectations of what women or men or people are supposed to sound like, because our trans voices are perfect as they are. But if someone is trans masculine and sort of having trouble with the testosterone process, it changes the voice completely. I would recommend that you look at some of there are a couple of opera singers in particular who have, if we connect maybe on like socials or something, I can send you a link to someone to look at. There's a particular opera singer who is transmasculine who has been going through a whole journey. It is the best education you can have is just to work with the voice in the most healthy way that you know how to work with the voice. Make sure that the singer is the best singer they can be, and try not to concern yourself so much with, as an educator, you might have to like work on the language that you're using around certain things. I think that might be the most important thing that will be affirming for that particular student. But if the student is a singer and is learning how to sing, the foundation is the foundation. A great voice is a great voice. And there are lots of voices who are not great singers and suddenly want to sound like they are, but we all want things we can't have sometimes.
Hey. Well,
Wow.
I mean, that's the
Not
reality.
shade.
Like,
Not
it's like if you're a singer, you're a singer.
Right.
There's another question in the middle. I don't-
Raise your hand high so they see
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Be bold.
It's a little dark, or at least you are from here.
And this one over there.
hi.
Is it on? Project. Okay. Hi, Bailey. I'm a dance major. I was just wondering, considering the show is just a beautiful, radical entity in itself, and it deals a lot with intersectionality, both Black, queer, artists, religion, all of these different things that surround life.
I think if I can, I think what it didn't change what shifted was it highlighted how less aware I was of intersectionality than I thought I was going in. And not because I wasn't giving, B+ work, but I think that I realize in the way that language is used, the way that things are marketed, the things that, I think that, like, for example, I don't know if I would say that the show was intersectional. The casting and the people on stage and the energies added to that. Because I do think that the story is still about a gay Black man. But I think intersectionality is more about nuance, right? So I think I came in thinking that I was better at noticing those nuances.
Right.
And then realizing that I wasn't, because the space was kind of built for me to begin with.
And intersectionality certainly applies
Yes.
to the life of Usher being
Yes.
in the intersection of being Black, gay, and fat. And those are certainly areas. But I agree.
Right.
I dissected intersectionality a lot differently
Yeah.
through the process of the show.
I mean, for me, one of the greatest privileges, and I do not claim to be an expert on intersectionality, but for sure I felt a privilege watching you become the authentic person that you are now, and how you came to it with bravery and kind of a simplicity to just kind of be able to go, this is who I am, and learning to change language around that and be lovingly corrected around that. And it was definitely a privilege to be able to go, oh, okay. So there's definitely more to learn. And, you know, we are learners. We continue to learn.
We had a very special thing. This was, again, we had all these years.
It was because it was family.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, what we're talking about, I transitioned through the process of developing the show. And typically in a project when something like that, I mean, this is not something that we know about happening in lots of projects.
Right.
But like generally in a project when that kind of thing happens, you move on to the next, you move on.
She was going to leave.
I was going to leave the show. Yeah. And they sort of pulled me out and was like, no, we've been talking about you behind your back. Let's talk about you in front of your face. And so they did, and a sort of new kind of journey / conversation started happening with the piece that was not present before in the piece. And that's, for me, that's intersectionality that it evolved as we continued with the run of the show. Each time we did another incarnation of the project, I personally was that much more comfortable in my own womanhood and sort of how I feel about things, and the piece affected me very differently in each version. Because the more comfortable I began to be in my own skin, the more, in a lot of ways, the more hurt I was in the project with how this black gay man's relationship was, particularly with black women. And like the way it felt like it was, and the way that the play is very much a rage play in so many ways, and so there was a lot of oppression and things being put on the character by society and by family, even if it was from love, but being a black woman in the project, there was a space where it felt a certain kind of way to have to watch this black gay man constantly sort of pine after the access and space that he felt that white women have, while sort of commenting on the blackness around him. So for me, there was a lot of negotiating and navigating that I did not have on day one in the project, that in Broadway, I certainly had like an overload of. So that was a definite part of the conversation for me.
Was it, I thought a lot, so I got to see it and I loved it, but I thought a lot about the audience that I was seeing it with. And I wondered about.
We did too.
Yes, that was my question. So thinking about, okay, but no, all right, so I have questions about that. So do you have things to say?
You know what, that comes up a lot, right?
Yeah, does
'Cause
it?
Speaking of intersectionality, that is where, with this show, I will say this too, I learned that the highways of your own intersectionality are how you see things and how you don't see things.
Absolutely.
Right? And so the thing is, it was always very odd to me when people would ask me what it's like to perform that show for majority white audiences, and I'm kind of like, so you mean like every other damn show I've done since I was 10 years old? Like it's not like a new thing that the majority of audiences on Broadway or in general are white. So that was always confusing to me, because I was just like, that's the default, you know?
But I think what is not the default is what you were talking about how these roles came to inhabit parts of you and parts of people who aren't necessarily put in front of those audiences.
I sometimes feel like it was harder for the audience members that maybe connected with, there was something similar about my identity that felt more uncomfortable watching it. This was my perspective. I think it was harder for audience members to be in this majority white house for this show that is so specifically not for them, you know?
And some were shocked to feel something, you know?
Right.
Some were. I thought it was really an interesting thing to, I'm nosy, so I was always kind of like, I'm just like, not even caring about the show, just looking in the audience to be like, who is here? But I thought it was so interesting to watch all these people who don't look like us dealing with it. Whether they I thought it was so interesting to watch a row of people where somebody absolutely hates it, sitting next to someone who loves it, sitting next to someone who's crying, and they all came together. And they all got to take the subway home together.
Right.
They all got to sit with each other at dinner after the show and be like,
juniors.
why did you like that? And like, I thought that a piece of musical theater, of all things, could do that. Sure.
See,
I think that's awesome.
I have a theory, particularly about the white folks who would have a question, because usually white people that ask me what that was like to perform. It was
Us too, yeah.
it wasn't always, but usually. And my theory is this, because a lot of these white people have seen stories about black people before, but the majority of stories always have someone white on stage. And so when there's no one white on stage, that's when the white people are kind of like, oh, am I supposed to be here? When I'm kind of like, you guys have seen black shows before. Your avenue was just seeing someone that looked like you on the stage, no matter what the context was.
Right, like an avatar.
Like,
Right.
yeah,
No,
for
like
sure,
an
you know?
avatar for like the, yeah.
Right.
But I think we also learned, because we could watch, you ingest and absorb theater through your identity. There's no other way you can do it, because
You are
there's so many
going
different
to
people.
look at things where you are.
I will also say, like, I think sometimes when black folk would come up to me, they're like, it would be like, you speaking a lot of black truth. Like, you are speaking
You're not supposed
out
to
of
say that.
school.
There's
But,
that
like,
black adage of like, white people are watching.
White
Shut
people
up.
are watching. And so, like,
Don't
it
tell
was
'em.
like you just like opened up all the business on a Broadway stage. Like what?
And why
there
not?
And so there was like that reaction, and then we had like a couple nights there at Playwrights. We had like a Black community night. And the energy in that room that night was like bananas.
Unreal.
And then we had a queer night on Broadway, a Black queer night on
Awesome.
Broadway, and that was like, it was like, yes! Like, I mean, it was a lot, you know.
Watching the white people those nights were fun.
Yeah, watching the white people those nights when they were like, oh, I'm literally one
like
of
they were
only
living.
3 white people in the audience today. It was
just
like,
like, wow.
great. Was
I always
great.
told people when they came to watch the show to turn around. Like, watch the audience
Yeah.
watching, because the
Because
audience is awesome.
Black folk watching that show got it.
Yeah.
Like, and if they were in a safe space where it was like a bunch of them, like, you know, we'd go out and it would be a majority white audience, and then you'd hear like 6, and you're like, the black people are
Well,
right
there are
there.
things there are jokes in there that we know specifically.
Yeah.
Black people, like that thing about, so I bought a wig, and then I
To
bought
put
a
on
wig
top
to
of
put on top of that other wig as a protective style. That is real specific. And only specific black people are going to laugh at that,
Yeah.
and that's how you know they're there.
Oh my God, you would just hear like a pocket of 6 people go, ha!
And the thing is, there were black people there, they just wanted them premium seats.
Yeah,
That's the other
true.
They're just
true.
The thing has not been designed to include everybody down in the front. And it historically has never been. The door on the right side of the Lyceum is
the
still,
colored
if you
door.
get up close enough, still says the colored entrance. Because it was back in the day.
It was, yeah.
So that's not that long ago.
And
So,
then we had one white guy who saw it 45 times.
Yeah, loved it. He's already seen White Girl in Danger 2 or 3 times. So it's interesting,
Yeah.
but it's also about who can afford the thing.
Yeah.
The thing has been designed for who it's been designed for. But I still say, like, yes, the show closed. Yes, we did what we did, but we came to a space we were not supposed to go to, and we took their things. Like, we won all of these things, and people loved what we did. And I think that, and no one can ever take that away. I think that's so cool. And then we get to do things like this too, and continue to talk about it. I think that's so awesome for what that means for like the possibilities of what could be next. Yeah. I think that's so cool.
That man, he'd been having his hand up.
All right. So we'll ask one last question.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I teach a music theater history class at East Carolina University, and we always talk about Broadway before Oklahoma, after Oklahoma, or before Hair, after Hair. So one of you mentioned that this show for you was pivotal, or you think that it's very pivotal in terms of music theater repertoire. So what do you think is going to be the after Strange Loop when the musicologists look back at this particular piece?
I
In
think it
terms
is,
of repertoire, or in terms of
like what's coming?
It could be the merits of the piece, the composition, but like
I think
this
it is
changed
genre
Broadway in
changing.
a significant way, and so I'm wondering, having been through it, what do you feel is going to be what are people going to look back at?
we've met all these young people who are writers, who want to be producers of things, they don't just want to be on stage and be like standing at 0, singing the 11 o'clock number. They want to do everything. They want to produce shows, direct shows, and they're coming.
Yeah.
So because we got to do what we did in a space we were told we would never get to do it, and we came and kind of kicked a little bit of ass. I'm so excited for what these kids are going to do. Like, I want to audition for it. So I think this is a genre-changing, like, pivotal moment. We didn't hit all of the things correctly on the head, but we got a lot done in a space that we really had been told we weren't supposed to be for a very long time.
I think it's the idea of permission.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so Rent came along, and all of a sudden, people went, oh, a musical can look and sound like that.
Y'all can
Here
sing about
comes
this?
along, and people go, wait, that can happen? Strange Loop comes along, and it gives permission for people to be as black and as queer and as fat and as
Anything they want.
You know, all of those things that they want to be. Will there be knockoffs? Probably.
Sure.
But I think what it does is it kind of opened up permission for people to go, oh, that is possible. And I remember there's this young, like 19-year-old white kid. He came inside.
Playwrights.
No, he came inside on Broadway, curly hair. He came to the final show and brought me cookies. But he was like, I want to produce. And like his whole, and he kept saying, but I see everything on Broadway, and I want to produce things like this. And so I think it's just a matter of
It's permission.
permission, maybe, that like, oh, that's possible, right? Like, we kind of get stuck in, this is what musical theater is, and this is the form, and this is what it looks like, and how wonderful is it to be able to say, actually, no, musical theater is just theater, so it can be anything.
Be absolutely anything.
It's also about the visibility. So Broadway allows the world to see the thing.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean the thing wasn't already existing
Yes. Right.
in
Yes,
rooms all
yes.
over the place. There are
Off-Broadway is doing amazing shit.
and the thing is not even off. Like, there's a lot of really exciting work happening in practice rooms around the country that is not being seen. So Broadway allows people that permission, as well as just the sort of larger picture idea that this is possible, that somebody might pick up this thing that you've been working on for so long. But I think it's always important to keep in mind that you saw it on Broadway, it is probably happening all over the place quietly, just not being supported
doesn't have the
financially.
funding.
It's not getting the
was for
backing.
over a decade.
And then it makes you, but then if you're a thinker and you're a question person, then it makes you go, then what is it that my project needs to do to be able to get the funding? Why did this project get the funding? What is that? What does that process look like? And then start to sort of play game with back and forth of how that, if you want the thing to be seen, what's the way towards doing that? And does it need to be seen on Broadway?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Broadway is a goal for many people, but it's not. Broadway
not the
is
be-all,
it's its
end-all.
own beast,
Yeah.
and
But
it
how
is not glamorous and joyful always.
No, but how exciting then, that there's this 19-year-old producer who's seen something like that, and then is going to go
Yes, exactly.
to a musical theater factory, then
Exactly.
is going to go
Hunting.
see something downtown, then is going to go see something in these independent spaces and go, how can I support that voice? How
It
can I
also
support
doesn't
that
happen
art?
overnight. Like,
No, it doesn't.
this took a very long ass time. Like, and I'm old.
Unless you got a lot of money.
Right.
I will say one of my professors who taught musical theater history, when talking about all the shows that you can mark in a shift in the genre or the art form, he always said this. He goes, those shows, yes, they talk about how those shows woke people up, or those are the shows that made someone want to get into theater. Those are the shows that made someone want to stay in the theater.
Oh, nice, true.
Those are the shows that when someone was ready to be like, there's no place for me here, I love this so much, but there's no place for me.
Yeah.
You know, like, even though it's cliche, say what you want about Hairspray, but Hairspray kept a lot of my friends going.
Sure.
Meaning,
For a
like,
long time.
now I can get the guys. So providing the possibility keeps the people that we need in it. You know, there were people who, plenty of ushers who won, and finally, there was a reason to be like, okay, that's one, great, cool. Now that it's possible, I can dream big.
Yeah.
We
And
just,
Bigger.
we just
the
met
other
one
night.
the other night at,
Yeah.
at his show, and he's like, I auditioned for it, and like,
Yeah.
So I think that we got to be a part of that is so cool. That's such an honor. So like I think whatever comes next, like someone is writing something right now.
Absolutely. Someone
Help them.
Here.
Like someone
here.
is in a practice room next to you, struggling over like 4 bars of something that they're kind of writing. Go play it with them or sing it with them or whatever.
Yes,
Someone is
yes.
literally writing the thing that I'm dying to see.
Right. And if it's inspired by a strange loop, then we want to cut up the check.
Yeah.
I also think that it's a really nerdy show in a way that I love. It's based on
yes.
philosophy of the mind
Absolutely.
and looping music, and it's just so smart. And I also think that what it proved is that audiences can be given more credit than Broadway will give them. And that
Audiences aren't dumb.
audiences are
Not dumb.
not stupid, and that like you can do something that is nerdy and like and people will love that too. Yeah, not. I mean, I hope that you understand. I'm calling your work nerdy with love.
It is nerdy. It is nerdy.
Okay, great, great.
I
Okay.
love a nerd.
But you also take away like different things. So,
Yeah.
like, there's people who come who only take away, oh, these songs are interesting, but that language was wild. And then there's
Yeah.
others who come in like, oh my God, this conversation about. So
Yeah.
it's when you're writing something that's honest and like when you're writing something that you know and that you have a POV about,
Yeah.
it's gonna
Yeah,
carry.
we had that Hofstadter book in our house forever. Did I ever think it would be a musical? No.
Right.
So I was just
Right.
like, what? So yeah. All right. Well, we are well past time, but I wanted
What?
to. I know. But thank you so very much for this.
We gotta give Lee this thumb.